There are moments in life when words don't just touch your mind, they reach down deep and grab your soul. This is one of those moments. This isn't just another motivational talk. This is a message for the broken, the tired, the ones who've smiled through silent pain. It's for the dreamer who's been delayed, the believer who's been bruised, and the fighter who's on the edge of giving up. Pain is the birthplace of purpose. You can't pray for strength and expect God to hand it to you gift wrapped in comfort. Strength don't come from easy days. Strength comes from nights when you cry so hard you can't breathe, from mornings when you don't even want to get up, but you still do. Every single struggle you faced wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to build you. Pain is God's way of stripping away everything fake, everything temporary, until only the real version of you remains. You think you lost something, but all you lost was what couldn't go where God is taking you. See, sometimes God has to let you hurt so he can heal you right. You can't find purpose living in pleasure all the time. You find it when you fall to your knees, when you don't understand what's happening, but you still whisper, Lord, I trust you. That's when heaven leans in and says, now we can work. Because pain introduces you to the version of yourself that success would never reveal. You don't discover faith when the sun is shining. You discover faith in the dark when you got no map, no plan, no answer, just a flicker of hope that somehow God still got you. Some of the most powerful people you'll ever meet didn't get there because life was kind to them. They got there because life hit them hard and they kept standing. They bled, they cried, they fell apart, but they refused to stay there. Pain taught them how to pray deeper, how to believe harder, how to praise louder even when nothing made sense. Because purpose don't grow in the light, it's born in the dirt. It's in those hidden seasons where you feel forgotten that God is writing the part of your story that will touch other people's lives one day. You asking God to use you, but you don't want to be uncomfortable. You saying, Lord, make me strong, but you run every time something hurts. You can't ask for destiny without first surviving the process. Diamonds don't shine until they've been cut. Gold ain't pure until it's been through the fire. That's what your pain is doing, cutting, refining, burning away what don't belong. You see ashes, but God sees a masterpiece rising. You see loss, but God sees alignment. Every tear is watering the ground of your purpose. Every heartbreak is pruning your soul so you can bear more fruit. You keep thinking pain is punishment, but sometimes it's protection. God closed that door not because he was being cruel, but because he heard conversations you didn't. He saw traps you couldn't. You thought it was rejection, but it was divine redirection. If he let you stay comfortable, you'd never move. You'd settle for less than what he promised. That storm that scared you was actually steering you toward your purpose. You ain't being buried, you being planted. There's a difference. When you bury something, it's over. When you plant something, it's beginning. There were nights when you thought you wouldn't make it. Nights when your pillow soaked up your prayers. But even then, God was whispering, hold on, I'm still working. You thought he was silent, but silence don't mean absence. Sometimes he's just doing his best work in secret. You were crying, thinking it was over, but in heaven your name was being mentioned in rooms you haven't even entered yet. That's how purpose works. It's hidden until the time is right. Pain is just the preparation. You ever wonder why God lets some people walk out on you right when you need them? Because he needed you to understand that purpose can't depend on people. People change, people leave, but God don't. He needed to separate you from the noise so you could finally hear his voice. He needed to take away the crutches so you could learn to stand in faith. Every loss you took was a setup for revelation. Every heartbreak was a lesson in transformation. The same people who left you will have to watch you rise, not out of revenge, but out of divine design. You got to stop running from pain and start learning from it. Ask yourself, what is God trying to teach me through this? Because once you understand that your pain has purpose, it loses its power to destroy you. It might bend you, but it can't break you. The enemy tried to use it to end you, but God flipped it to strengthen you. You walked through fire, but you didn't burn. You walked through storms, but you didn't drown. Why? Because your purpose is bigger than your pain. When you're in the middle of it, it don't make sense. You just see the hurt, the confusion, the loss. But later, when you look back, you realize that every single painful moment was necessary. That job you lost, it forced you to start that business. That heartbreak, it opened your heart to the real one. That disappointment, it redirected you to destiny. Pain was never the enemy. It was the messenger. It carried the message that said, you were made for more. But see, you can't tell a powerful testimony without first surviving something painful. That's why your story matters. Somebody out there is praying for the strength you already developed through your pain. Somebody is watching how you handle your storm, and they're learning faith through your fire. Your pain is not just for you. It's for the people who will find healing through your survival. That's why you can't quit. That's why you gotta keep walking even when it hurts. Because every step you take through pain is a step closer to purpose. You asking God to use you, but you don't want to be uncomfortable. You saying, Lord, make me strong, but you run every time something hurts. You can't ask for destiny without first surviving the process. Diamonds don't shine until they've been cut. Gold ain't pure until it's been through the fire. That's what your pain is doing, cutting, refining, burning away what don't belong. You see ashes, but God sees a masterpiece rising. You see loss, but God sees alignment. Every tear is watering the ground of your purpose. Every heartbreak is pruning your soul so you can bear more fruit. You keep thinking pain is punishment, but sometimes it's protection. God closed that door not because he was being cruel, but because he heard conversations you didn't. He saw traps you couldn't. You thought it was rejection, but it was divine redirection. If he let you stay comfortable, you'd never move. You'd settle for less than what he promised. That storm that scared you was actually steering you toward your purpose. You ain't being buried, you being planted. There's a difference. When you bury something, it's over. When you plant something, it's beginning. There were nights when you thought you wouldn't make it. Nights when your pillow soaked up your prayers. But even then, God was whispering, hold on, I'm still working. You thought he was silent, but silence don't mean absence. Sometimes he's just doing his best work in secret. You were crying, thinking it was over, but in heaven your name was being mentioned in rooms you haven't even entered yet. That's how purpose works. It's hidden until the time is right. Pain is just the preparation. You ever wonder why God lets some people walk out on you right when you need them? Because he needed you to understand that purpose can't depend on people. People change, people leave, but God don't. He needed to separate you from the noise so you could finally hear his voice. He needed to take away the crutches so you could learn to stand in faith. Every loss you took was a setup for revelation. Every heartbreak was a lesson in transformation. The same people who left you will have to watch you rise, not out of revenge, but out of divine design. You got to stop running from pain and start learning from it. Ask yourself, what is God trying to teach me through this? Because once you understand that your pain has purpose, it loses its power to destroy you. It might bend you, but it can't break you. The enemy tried to use it to end you, but God flipped it to strengthen you. You walked through fire, but you didn't burn. You walked through storms, but you didn't drown. Why? Because your purpose is bigger than your pain. When you're in the middle of it, it don't make sense. You just see the hurt, the confusion, the loss. But later when you look back, you realize that every single painful moment was necessary. That job you lost, it forced you to start that business. That heartbreak, it opened your heart to the real one. That disappointment, it redirected you to destiny. Pain was never the enemy. It was the messenger. It carried the message that said, you were made for more. See, you can't tell a powerful testimony without first surviving something painful. That's why your story matters. Tempt. Somebody out there is praying for the strength you already developed through your pain. Somebody is watching how you handle your storm, and they're learning faith through your fire. Your pain is not just for you. It's for the people who will find healing through your survival. That's why you can't quit. That's why you got to keep walking even when it hurts. Because every step you take through pain is a step closer to purpose. Pain will introduce you to a version of yourself you didn't even know existed. The fighter, the believer, the survivor. You'll come out of it stronger, wiser, humbler. You'll stop chasing approval and start chasing peace. You'll stop asking, why me? And start saying, thank you, Lord, for trusting me with this. Because he knew you could handle it. He knew that one day you'd turn your pain into power, your tears into testimony, your scars into stories that heal others. That's why he didn't take you out of it. He's taking you through it. Because pain is not where your story ends. It's where your purpose begins. Rejection is just redirection from God. You see, sometimes what feels like the end is really the beginning of something divine. You get rejected from that job, that relationship, that opportunity, and you fall apart thinking life's unfair. But what you don't see is that God was protecting you from something that would have delayed your destiny. Every closed door ain't a curse. Some are blessings wrapped in disappointment. You thought you lost something, but all you lost was what was never meant to stay. We get so caught up in what didn't work that we forget who's really in control. You cry over people who left, not realizing God heard conversations you didn't. He saw betrayal coming before you did. He saw the traps you couldn't see. So he said, no, but you mistook his protection for punishment. Sometimes rejection is God's way of saying, I love you too much to let you settle for less than what I have for you. You thought that, meant failure, but it actually meant not this one. You keep asking God to open doors, but he can't bless you in places that aren't built for your purpose. That's why he closed it. Because if he'd let you in that room, you'd have started shrinking yourself to fit. You'd have dimmed your light just to make others comfortable. That's not where he wanted you. That rejection was a divine reroute. God's GPS saying, recalculating, I got something better. You were aiming for good, but God was aiming for great. There are people who walked away from you, and you're still asking why. But the truth is, some people are only assigned to a chapter, not the whole book. And if you keep dragging old characters into new seasons, you'll keep reliving the same pain. God had to end it because you wouldn't. You were too loyal to comfort, too afraid to let go. So he allowed rejection to do the cutting that love wouldn't. He said, if you won't move, I'll move it for you. And though it hurt, it freed you. Think about all the times you thought your life was falling apart, only to realize later it was actually falling into place. You lost that job attempt, then found your calling. You got dumped, then discovered your worth. You missed out on that deal, then landed something bigger. That's not coincidence. That's divine alignment. God was saying, you don't need that door. I'll build you a whole new house. But you had to first experience rejection to recognize his direction. We don't like rejection because it bruises our ego. It makes us question our value. But your worth was never tied to who accepts you. Your worth was written in heaven long before anyone had an opinion about you. Stop begging for seats at tables God already flipped over. Stop chasing people who can't see your light. When someone rejects you, thank them. They just confirmed they weren't assigned to your journey. You ain't losing, you're being positioned. You're being pulled away from what's temporary toward what's eternal. Sometimes God has to let you feel the sting of rejection to push you toward your real calling. If he didn't close that door, you'd still be wasting your gift in the wrong place. If that person hadn't walked out, you'd still be trying to prove your worth instead of walking in it. He let it happen because he knew that pain would push you to purpose. Rejection becomes redirection when you trust his hand more than your plan. Attempt. Every no you've ever received was leading you toward your yes. You just couldn't see it then. You thought you were being punished, but you were being prepared. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment, it was all divine. God don't waste pain, and he don't waste rejection either. He'll use it to humble you, shape you, and set you up for something you couldn't have imagined. What you call rejection, heaven calls rerouting. You see, when God says no, he's not taking from you. He's making room for what's next. You can't receive new blessings with your hands full of old ones. That's why he removed it. Not because you didn't deserve it, but because you deserved more. He's not punishing you. He's positioning you. You thought you were being left behind, but really you were being lifted higher. Because when man rejects you, it's just God saying, Now watch what I can do without them. So stop mourning what walked away. Stop crying over who didn't choose you. Tempt. They couldn't see your value because they weren't meant to. What's for you can't miss you. And if it missed you, it wasn't for you. That rejection was your redirection. Your proof that God's plan is still in motion, even when you can't see it. Keep your head high, your faith steady, and your heart open. Because the same doors that once said, access denied, will soon say, welcome home. Faith ain't tested in comfort. It's tested in chaos. Anybody can praise when life is sweet, when the bills are paid, when the doors are opening and everything feels smooth. But real faith shows up when everything falls apart, when the lights go out, when the money runs low, when the doctor shakes his head, when people you trusted turn their backs on you. That's when faith gets real. That's when God looks down and says, no, let's see if you still believe me. Because it's easy to shout, God is good when everything's good, but can you still say it when it's not? Faith ain't about what you can see. It's about what you choose to believe when there's no proof, no sign, no reason to hold on except that quiet whisper in your soul that says, keep going. That's faith. It's walking through darkness like you already see the sunrise. It's standing in the middle of the storm with your hands lifted saying, God, I don't know how, but I trust you. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. That's the kind of faith that brings heaven to attention. You see, comfort don't build faith. Comfort builds routine. Chaos builds revelation. Because when everything around you is shaking, that's when you discover who your foundation really is. You thought your faith was strong until life hit you hard. Then you realize faith isn't about quoting verses. It's about living them when there's nothing else to hold on to. God don't test you to see you fall. He tests you so you'll finally see what he's already placed inside you. There are some blessings you can't receive until you've walked through fire, because the fire burns off fear. The fire teaches you to trust God, not the plan. You keep asking for miracles, but miracles only happen in impossible places. You want your Red Sea to part, but you forget the water only moved when Moses stepped into it. That's faith, not waiting for the storm to end, but believing that even in the middle of it, God is still steering the ship. Some of y'all been praying for peace, but peace doesn't mean the absence of chaos. Peace means standing still while chaos is all around you and saying, my God is still in control. That's what faith looks like. When everything's screaming, give up, faith whispers, hold on. When fear says, you're finished, says, you're just getting started. When the enemy says, you can't, faith says, watch God do it anyway. Faith ain't a feeling, it's a decision. And let me tell you something, God will intentionally allow you to step into situations where your faith is the only thing you got left. Not because he's cruel, but because he wants you to learn that he's enough. When the bank account runs dry, he becomes your provider. When the diagnosis looks bad, he becomes your healer. When the door's close, he becomes your waymaker. You don't know he's all you need until he's all you have. And once you've been there, once you've seen him show up when nobody else could, you'll never doubt him the same way again. Faith ain't about escaping the storm. It's about trusting the one who controls it. God never promised life would be easy. He promised he'd be with you through it. You might be in a valley right now, but valleys are where faith grows. On the mountaintop, you praise. In the valley, you learn who God really is. And that's why he lets you walk through the dark, not to punish you, but to prove to you that even there, his light still shines. You keep asking God to strengthen your faith, but then you get angry when he sends the very storms that make it strong. You don't build muscle lifting feathers, you build it lifting weight. Same with faith. Every time life knocked you down and you got back up, your faith got stronger. Every time you said, God, I don't understand, but I'll trust you anyway, your spirit got tougher. Faith is forged in fire, not comfort. So when chaos comes, when the phone rings with bad news, when the plan falls apart, when the tears don't stop, don't see it as punishment. See it as a test that reveals your power. The same God who carried you through the last storm will carry you through this one. He ain't changed. His track record is perfect. You didn't make it this far to be abandoned now. The presence of chaos doesn't mean God left you. It means he's training you for something greater. Because every giant you face is proof that there's a new level waiting on the other side. Faith grows in the fight. It matures in the mess. You don't get stronger sitting in safety. You get stronger standing in the storm. Attempt. And the moment you start trusting God, even when it doesn't make sense, that's when you step into a power the world can't take from you. That's when you realize faith isn't about avoiding chaos. It's about standing tall in the middle of it, knowing that no matter how bad it looks, your God still reigns. Your delay is not your denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. God's silence doesn't mean his absence. Sometimes he's just working behind the scenes, preparing the blessing so it doesn't destroy you when it comes. We live in a world that wants everything quick money, quick success, quick answers. But God don't move on your schedule. He moves on his purpose. And if he's making you wait, it's because he's building something in you first. You don't bake a cake by turning up the oven just because you're hungry. You wait for it to rise. Same thing with destiny. It takes time to rise. You see, delay ain't punishment, it's preparation. When God makes you wait, attempt. He's developing something in your character that comfort could never teach you. He's strengthening your patience, sharpening your focus, attempt, and teaching you how to depend on him instead of the outcome. You're praying for the blessing, but he's making sure you can handle the weight of it. Because what good is a gift if you ain't ready to carry it? Some of you asking God for things that your maturity can't sustain yet. That's why he hasn't said no. He just said not yet. We get frustrated because we mistake wait for never. But waiting is a part of the process. Ask Joseph. He had a dream at 17, but he didn't step into it until years later, after betrayal, prison, and pain. Ask Abraham. God promised him a son, but he waited decades to see it. Ask David, anointed as king, but spent years running for his life before he ever wore the crown. Every great person in scripture had to endure a delay, because delay builds dependency. It teaches you that what's from God is worth the wait. You see, when God delays, he's not denying, he's aligning. He's aligning you with the right people, the right season, the right place. You might be ready for the blessing, but maybe the blessing ain't ready for you yet. Maybe the people you're meant to help ain't in position yet. Maybe the opportunity you're waiting for still needs a foundation. God's not just working on your prayer. He's working on everything connected to it. That's why he's delaying it, because divine timing requires divine order. We want God to rush, but he loves us too much to do that. If he gave it too early, we'd mishandle it. If he opened the door before you learned discipline, you'd lose what he gave. Sometimes the wait protects you. You don't see it now, but that delay is saving you from heartbreak, from betrayal, from disaster. God knows the exact moment when your heart, your faith, and your purpose will align. And when that moment comes, no man, no devil, no situation can stop it. But while you wait, you can't get bitter. You can't start doubting. The enemy's favorite trick is to make you believe delay means denial. He wants you to think God forgot. But baby, God don't forget. He wrote your story before you were even born. Every tear you cried was already counted. Every prayer you whispered was already heard. He just needs you to trust him enough to wait for his perfect time. Because your timeline might be quick, but his timing is precise. Sometimes he delays because he's testing your faith. Can you still praise when there's no proof? Can you still thank him when you can't see the blessing? That's what separates the talkers from the believers. Real faith is saying, even if it doesn't come today, I know it's coming. Real faith is planting seeds and watering them with worship, even when the soil looks dry. Real faith waits in expectation, not frustration. And let me tell you, when the time comes, when that door finally opens, when that prayer finally gets answered, you'll understand why it took so long. You'll realize that the waiting season was the making season. The delay made you wiser, stronger, tougher. It stripped away pride, taught you gratitude, taught you how to handle blessings with humility. The version of you that entered the delay ain't the same one that's going to walk out of it. That's why God waited. Because he wasn't just preparing the blessing for you. He was preparing you for the blessing. You might be standing in front of closed doors right now, feeling forgotten. But remember this, when God delays, he's not saying, I'm done. He's saying, I'm not finished. You don't plant a seed and dig it up the next day because it hasn't sprouted. You trust that something's happening underground. That's faith, believing that even when you can't see progress, God is still moving. The soil may be silent, but it's not still. So don't let the delay discourage you. Let it develop you. Let it teach you to trust timing over urgency, faith over fear, growth over gratification. Because when it finally happens, when the pieces come together, when the doors swing wide, when the prayer turns into praise, you'll look back and say, now I see it. Now I understand why I had to wait. And in that moment, you'll realize that delay was never denial. It was destiny taking its time. Sometimes God removes people to reveal your power. You keep wondering why certain people walked out of your life, why friends you trusted turned cold, why family started treating you different. But what you don't understand is that some losses are divine subtraction. God ain't punishing you, he's positioning you. You were so busy holding on to people that were draining you that God had to pull them out so you could finally stand on your own strength. You thought they were your support, but really they were your ceiling. And as long as you depended on them, you could never see how powerful you truly are. See, when God starts elevating you, he'll start isolating you. Not to hurt you, but to heal you. Not to make you lonely, but to make you ready. Because there are seasons where you can't take everyone with you. Some people were only meant for your past chapter, not your next one. They were good for your growth, but not your greatness. God heard conversations you didn't, saw intentions you ignored, and said, no, not them. You cried over who left, not realizing heaven was clapping because the weight was gone. You don't know how strong you are until strong is all you got left. Sometimes God has to let people walk away so you can learn that your peace, your joy, your worth never depended on them. You've been asking God for power, for purpose, for clarity. And he answered by removing distractions disguised as relationships. He separated you so you could finally hear his voice instead of their opinions. You thought they betrayed you, but really they released you. They did what you were too afraid to do. You can't carry destiny and dead weight at the same time. That's why he's cutting people off, not because he wants to leave you empty, but because he wants to fill you with strength. You were leaning on people instead of leaning on God. You were letting validation replace vision. So he stripped it all away, not to leave you broken, but to show you you never needed their approval to begin with. The same people who doubted you will have to witness your rise, not because you sought revenge, but because your success will preach louder than any words could. Sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is let go of who you thought would always be there. But what if I told you their exit was your elevation? What if I told you that door closing was heaven's protection? Because the truth is, some people can't handle your next level. They loved you as long as you stayed small. They were comfortable with your struggle, but intimidated by your strength. And God loves you too much to let you shrink just to keep company. That's why he had to break that attachment, because destiny don't mix with dependency. You keep asking, why me? But what if this separation is a way of showing you that the power was in you all along? You thought you needed them to move forward, but once they left, you discovered a version of yourself you didn't even know existed. You found focus. You found peace. You found God in a way you never did when you were surrounded by noise. The loss revealed the leader. The heartbreak revealed the healer. You had to lose them to find him and to finally find you. People come and go, but purpose stays. That's why you can't build your identity around who stays or who leaves. You got to anchor yourself in something eternal. Every time someone walked away, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God was saying, you don't need them to reach where I'm taking you. Because where he's taking you, loyalty won't be proven by words, but by fruit. Some people prayed with you, but didn't pray for you. Some celebrated your blessings publicly, but envied them privately. God saw that long before you did. You think it's loneliness, but it's actually divine isolation. When God calls you higher, he often calls you alone. because the oil on your life ain't for the crowd, it's for the calling. You're not being punished. You're being purified. He's clearing your circle so he can clear your vision. He's removing attachments so you can move in authority. He's taken away people who kept you small so you can finally walk in the power he placed inside you. And here's the truth. The people who walked away didn't take your anointing with them. They didn't take your gift, your calling, or your destiny. You still got it. You still carry the same fire. If anything, you're stronger now because you've learned how to depend on God, not on applause. The pain taught you power. The betrayal taught you boundaries. The loss taught you leadership. You learned that you don't need a crowd to be chosen. You just need faith. So stop mourning over what left. Stop chasing people God already released. If they could walk away, they weren't meant to stay. If they could betray you, they weren't built for your blessing. Every goodbye was guided. Every loss was love in disguise. God had to clear the space because he's about to fill it with something greater. Peace, power, purpose. You didn't lose anything essential. You just gained everything eternal. And one day you'll look back and thank God not just for who came into your life, but for who he took out. Because that's when you finally saw the power he put within you all along. Every breakdown is preparing you for your breakthrough. You keep thinking the pain is punishment, but what if it's preparation? What if that heartbreak, that failure, that sleepless night wasn't meant to destroy you, but to develop you? You see, before God promotes you, he proves you. Before he trusts you with the blessing, he'll test you with the burden. You can't skip the breaking and still expect to carry the blessing, because what he's building in you can only come through pressure. Diamonds don't shine until they've been crushed. Oil doesn't flow until the olive's been pressed. That's what your breakdown is. Divine pressure creating purpose. You cried because you thought it was over, but God said, no, this is where it begins. You thought you were losing everything, but he was just stripping away what couldn't come with you. You were praying for breakthrough, but breakthrough don't come without breaking. Something has to break. The fear, the pride, the control, the old version of you. You can't step into destiny while still clinging to what's comfortable. That's why the breakdown feels so painful, because you're outgrowing your past, but haven't yet arrived at your future. It's the in between that hurts, but it's also where transformation happens. When everything falls apart, that's when you finally realize you were never holding it together. God was. He let it fall so you'd stop relying on your own strength and start leaning on his. The same breakdown that made you question him is the one used to reveal himself. You don't learn faith on mountaintops, you learn it in the valley. When the tears won't stop and the answers don't come, that's when God whispers, I'm still here, keep walking. And if you keep walking through that valley, one day you'll realize the valley wasn't a dead end, it was a doorway. The breakdown exposes what's fragile so the breakthrough can reveal what's firm. You thought you were strong because everything was stable, but stability doesn't equal strength. Strength is proven in the storm. God had to let some things crumble so you could see what was built on sand and what was built on rock. That job you lost, that relationship that ended, that season that broke you, none of it was wasted. Each piece of pain was a brick in the foundation of who you're becoming. He's not tearing you down. He's rebuilding you stronger. Sometimes you got to break to see what's inside of you. You had potential buried under fear, power buried under pain, greatness buried under grief. The breakdown cracked you open so God could pull that out. You wouldn't have prayed like you do now if everything had stayed easy. You wouldn't have found purpose if everything had gone your way. That's why he let it fall apart, because he knew you needed to break before you could bloom. There's beauty in the breaking because it's where surrender happens. And surrender is the soil where miracles grow. You keep asking, why me? But maybe the better question is, what is God building through me? Because he don't waste a breakdown. Every tear waters your faith. Every disappointment deepens your dependence. Every setback sets you up for something greater. What looks like an ending to you is just an editing from him. He's rewriting your story. But first he had to remove some chapters that no longer fit your purpose. The breakdown was his way of saying, You've stayed here long enough. It's time to grow. Don't despise the breaking season. That's where you're being reshaped, refined, and rebuilt. You're not breaking down, you're breaking through. The pain is temporary, but the power it produces is permanent. The seed doesn't die in the dirt. It transforms. It becomes something new. That's what's happening to you. You're not buried, you're planted. And in due season, what broke you will bless you. The same situation that made you cry will one day make you grateful. The same mountain that blocked your path will become your testimony. Breakdowns are divine setups. They strip you of everything fake so the real you can rise. They take you to the edge so you can see that grace was carrying you all along. You can't experience resurrection without first going through crucifixion. Something in you has to die for something greater to live. God lets it break because he knows what's waiting on the other side. And when you finally come out of it, you won't come out the same. You'll come out stronger, wiser, bolder, filled with peace that pain can't shake and faith that fear can't break. So don't curse your breakdown. Thank God for it. Because it's the place where he's molding your miracle. It's the hallway before the open door, the silence before the song, the night before the sunrise. You think you're falling apart, but you're actually falling into alignment. What the enemy meant for evil, God is turning for your elevation. That breakdown wasn't the end of you. It was the unveiling of the new you. And when your breakthrough comes, it won't just bless you. It'll bless everyone who watched you survive the breaking.